My name is Pamela Kearns of Peyote Dreams Jewelry Designs, and thank you for joining me again today. We're going to continue our look at how to do peyote stitch. This video, we're going to learn and review how to do odd count peyote. We're going to take the fear out of that dreaded odd count so that you can get started doing centered designs using peyote stitch. So let's get started. Okay, here we are at our work surface. Today we're going to be using three colors. I'm using size 8 Delica beads. Size 8 is not something you would typically use for jewelry making, but it will allow you to see exactly what I am doing. So here's some examples of odd count peyote, and these are using size 11s. So you can see the size difference first of all, but odd count peyote does allow for this center line and for a centered design. And once you learn and get comfortable with odd count peyote, it's going to open up a whole world of design possibilities for you, either using your own designs or finding other designs from other designers. By the way, on my website, www.peyotedreams.ca, I do have some free patterns for you, including the O Canada, which is right here. So feel free to download them and enjoy. So let's get started. We're going to pick up 9 red seed or Delica beads here. That's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're going to take them down toward the end of our thread. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I like to keep a generous amount of tail thread. I'm going to wrap it around my fingers, which helps hold this in place. I do work in my hands. I don't put it onto the work surface. So we're ready to start. We're going to switch over to size blue, or to the blue beads, and we're going to start peyote. As you know, peyote, you stitch into alternating beads beginning with the second bead. So we stitch into bead number 2 on the working side. That's my budgie there in the background wanting to provide some musical interlude and actually trying to get my attention. And we're just going to continue along. I'm stitching into bead 4. Don't worry if it feels loose. We're going to be fixing that problem at the end of this row. Stitching into bead 6. Picking up another, stitching into bead 8. And you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, you have 9 beads. How is that going to work? Well, guess what? I am picking up my last bead, and as you can see, there is no place to stitch into. So, to finish this row, there's a couple of things we can do. Let's just lie it down. So the red beads are what we started with, and I've been adding the blue beads all the way along here. There's 2 ways that I can finish this row. One is to stitch into this red bead and do a U-turn. Working with small beads, that's going to fill up your thread, your beads with thread very quickly. And you do run the risk of breaking the beads, to be quite frankly, when you start to add any of your finishing to it. A few years ago, I was introduced to this other method, and I was very skeptical, but it does work, and it works very well. What you're going to do is tie your tail thread that's coming out of the red bead and the working thread, which is coming out of the blue bead. Tie them together. I use a basic, just a double knot. You don't have to do a surgeon's knot. I'm just doing a basic knot there, and that is now together. You do want to make sure that the knot is sitting not inside of a bead, but in between the beads, and that will keep it from filling up. And that's especially important for small beads. You don't want to block the hole. So that is together. We're ready to continue. I'm going to hold the tail thread in my fingers And this time we're going to stitch in the other direction. To get my needle into place from the side here where the knot is, I'm going to stitch through this blue bead. That's the one we just added. I'm now ready to put beads now in these empty sections. To do that, pick up a bead, stitch through the upper bead that's sticking up there, and you just continue along the row. Okay, so far so good, not too scary, huh? A lot of people are afraid and very timid, sorry, just caught my thread there, of odd count peyote. Okay, we finished that row. We're back to, we've got stripes happening here. Let's switch over to white beads. Okay, you'll notice that this side is just a regular turn and continue stitching side. So here we go. We're going to now stitch with white beads, and I'm using the 3 colors so you can see what's happening step by step. Okay, so we're getting to this other weird side, and it's always the side where the tail thread is. So here we are. Let's bring the white bead down. So again, I need to join the white bead to the blue bead. Let's zoom in a little bit so you have a better view of what's going to go on here. Okay, so again, I want to join the white to the blue. This is the figure 8 method. And what you're going to do is go down the blue. That joins it. I'm going to go down one more course down, and I'm going down the red. That's the one part of the base, the first one that we picked up. I now am able to turn around and do a U-turn back. So I'm going to stitch up the blue, which is closer to my working edge, and I'm going to stitch up this blue, which is right beside the bead, the white bead we had added. Okay, that is the figure 8 method. We are going down the bead that's beside where you want to join, down, cut across, and go back up again. To continue stitching, I'm going to go down this white bead, turn it back so that I can continue stitching, and I'm ready now to fill in these blanks. So let's do that, and this is just back to regular peyote. Now, each method of the odd turn does have its pros and cons. The good part about the figure 8 is that you continue working as you go. It isn't affected by tension. It isn't affected by anything else. However, the bad point about it is because you have gone in different directions through some of the same beads, it's almost impossible to unstitch it and to fix mistakes. So as you do and work with the odd count turn, you do want to check the row that you've finished before you do the turn. So let's review the odd turn again. And this is the figure 8. So I've got my red bead. I'm going to stitch down the white bead, and this joins the 2 sections together like that. I'm going down the bead one over towards my starting edge. I'm going to now cut across and go up the white bead beside it, closer, and that is closer to my working edge, like that. And as you pull through and tighten it up, those threads will not be seen. Okay, I'm going up one more bead. This is the white bead that I joined the red bead to. Come on, thread, quit catching on things. That's the odd count, that is the figure 8 odd count turn. And ready to stitch, back down that new bead I just added, that red bead, turn, and I'm ready to continue. So let's go. So that is the odd count turn. I do like the odd count turn, but I am very careful that I don't make mistakes, because what you have to do if you've made a mistake is basically either start again or cut it and join a thread to it. Okay, here we are. Now let me show you another turn. So let me get over to the odd turn side. So sort of like watching paint dry, isn't it? To watch somebody else bead. Okay, so we have done the figure 8 where we're going through beads and back into stuff. This is what most people call under the thread turn. By looking at our the side of our beading, you can see that there are threads going from one row to another. This time, to join the white bead to the red bead, we're going to go under the thread. Oops, this should be blue. Oh well, we're going to change the pattern. We're going to go under the thread of the red to the previous row. Okay? And I'm going to pull through. And if this new bead needs to be nudged into place, go ahead and nudge it. And then go back down the bead that you just added. And you're thinking, why did you show me the other? This looks so much easier. Well, it is easier, but it also has its drawbacks. I will show you an example of the drawback for that. So let's go back and forth again. Let me show you that again. Only need one bead at a time there. Okay, so here we are. This is a regular turn, and this is not unusual that the thread wraps around beading. Okay, let's switch this to blue. Oops. It's a little humid here today, and the thread is sticking to my skin like crazy. Okay, so we're stitching back toward the dreaded odd turn side. And here we are, back at the odd turn side. Let's look at the under the thread method again. So we want to join this blue bead to the white, and we're going to go under the thread that is joining the white bead to the red. So under the thread, and you'll notice too, I think you can see it, that is now a double thread. So one of the downsides is that you do see the thread a little bit more on one side. So flip it into place and go back down the new bead you just added. Like that. Okay, let's put this down. I want to show you one of the problems with that particular method of doing it. I tend to bead very tightly, and if you are a tight beader, let's flip this around, then what happens, you can get some puckering. So this is what happens with me with the under the thread method. You can see the curve there, and what that is caused is that my tension is tighter on this side than it is on this side, and that's because it's not sitting the same way. It does allow the beading to pucker up a little bit if your beading is too tight. Let me see if I can show you another. There, you can see just how puckered that is, that it's not straight. So this piece of beading, I keep it as an example to show where the tension can change. So this was all done under the thread. I changed it up here to the odd count, or to the figure 8 turn. And you can see that it is much straighter, and the puckering has really changed as well. It's not there anymore. So there you can see there is the puckering with the tight tension of under the thread, and here is with the odd count figure 8 turn. So that is the two sort of the pros and cons of the under the thread method. It does work. You just have to be very careful. But it does work also very well for short pieces. So this is a piece that I've done. It is just a piece of odd count peyote, and it is zipped around the piece of licorice leather. For the short pieces like this, the puckering and the tension is not going to matter as much once you've zipped it up and it's tightly zipped, so it's not as noticeable. However, for longer lengths like a bracelet, be very careful of it. Okay, so that is 2 ways of doing it. Let me just do a back and forth here. And I'm going to talk about a third method. So doing odd count peyote does not have to be a terrifying experience. There are options as to how to do it. Okay, flip my work. I think let's go to red here. So the third method is using brick stitch to fill in the last row. What you can do is just ignore the fact that you have odd count peyote and go as far as you can using even count. So what that means, of the 9 columns that I have, or the 9 beads, I am going to ignore this last row. So I'm here at bead 8. I'm going to flip my work and just go back. So I am pretending that this is 8 wide evened peyote. So back and forth. Let's switch colors again. Let's go back to white. Okay, so this particular method, I didn't add for the under the thread. The under the thread, unlike the figure 8, the under the thread is really easy. If you've made a mistake to pull threads back or to pull beads out, it's very easy to do. So that is a good point about the under the thread method. Okay, so I think we need one more back and forth here just so you can see what I'm going to do next. Let's make this blue. We're not going to turn this into a bracelet or anything. This is simply so you can see what's going on. Okay. Okay, and let's head back to that other turn. Thank you for your patience watching this. Oops. It's one thing about the large beads, you can sort of make corrections as you go along. Okay, so here we are. So I've done a little bit there of the regular even count peyote and totally ignored this last odd count turn. But now I want to fill in some of these. Now, if I was doing a bracelet, I could do the entire length of bracelet and then fill in this piece, this whole row at one time. And I have done that before. It takes a little longer. One of the drawbacks is that you are doing it in 2 pieces. Okay, so you're doing one part It's easy to make changes, easy to do, a little faster. You don't have to worry about some odd turn. But you do have to go back and add that last row or that last set of beads at a later time, which can be a little confusing, but maybe not. So I want to go from here up to here by traveling through the beads. And by traveling through the beads, what I mean is that you're going to go bead to bead, making sure that your thread is not seen. This is nothing new. This is where the same thing as if you're burying thread, that you are going from bead to bead without it being seen. And I'm just working my way to come out this upper blue bead. Okay, we're almost there. All right. So we're coming out of this upper blue bead, ready to fill in this blank space here. So in this pattern, the red would be next. So I'm going to pick up a red bead. Let's look here. The row below, this part here that's not filled in, the row below has a thread going between this red bead and this blue bead. I'm going to go under the thread. This is brick stitch. Under the thread, pull through. My bead is on the needle. Push my bead into place there and go back up my new bead, the red bead. Just like that. Okay, my next color in place will be white. I'll pick up a white bead. I'm going underneath the thread of the row below between the white and the red. Come on, get under there. We have an audience, behave. Okay, so, oops, get under both threads there. Under the thread, pull through. Go back up that white bead. My last bead will be the blue. I'm going under the thread of the row below between that blue bead and the white bead beside it. Pull through and back up this white bead. Okay, that is now complete. Now if I wanted to, it looks like my turns or my odd and even side might have changed a little bit there. I'm at a point where I could zip this up, put it around something. Let me see if I think this is too big for the straw. Not too bad. So I could zip this up if I wanted to and create a beaded bead, or I could simply continue on beading. But that is how you do odd count peyote. 3 ways of doing it. Okay, now the other thing, if you've watched my other video, number 2, about the even count, what you can do to convert a band into a bracelet is by doing a loop of beads. You can review my part 2 video about how to do that, and you can put a loop on both ends, attach your clasp, and away you go. Okay, so that comes to the end of the odd count video, and I want to thank you very much for watching and for your patience. If you have any questions, by all means, put them to me in the comments. Also, if there's any stitches that you would like to see, other stitches are being planned. I do plan to do more about the brick stitch, as well as right angle weave, cubic right angle weave, and so on. But if there's things that you specifically want covered, leave a comment or send me an email at Pamela Kearns 2019 at gmail.com. All right, so please share this information and my channel with your beading buddies who happen to be left-handed, or if they're right-handed, we can handle those too. So thank you again for watching. I really appreciate your time. All the best. Bye-bye.